Okay, so I believe everybody is on. I would like to start this webinar by passing the microphone over to our CEO, Cathal O'Connor.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good day, everyone, and welcome to another Strathallan webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to help you, our tenants, understand the details of the new rental assistance program, which is called the Canada Emergency Rental Assistance Program. This is a joint federal and provincial program that provides relief to small business experiencing financial hardship due to COVID-19. The details of this program have only recently been finalized, so this webinar is very current and timely. As a landlord, we support our small tenants in their time of need, and especially during COVID. This program will help you if you qualify as follows. The federal and provincial government will pay 50% of your gross rent for April, May, and June. And the landlord will abate a further 25% of your rent for April, May, and June. The government has decided that the landlord administer the program. So it wasn't our idea, it's just what is being contemplated. We hope that you, our tenants, participate in this program. Please follow the process that we're about to unveil. And we look forward to resuming normal operations as soon as possible. So over to Peter now. Thank you.
Thank you, Cathal. Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Friday. My name is Peter Kafka, and I will be moderating this webinar for you today. A couple of housekeeping items before we get into the presentation. The material and information in this presentation is for general information purpose only, so please consult your financial and legal advisors before taking any action. And number two, this webinar will be recorded and sent to you via email. So please do grab pen and paper and take notes, but if you miss something, do not despair, there will be a recorded version of this available for you. On today's webinar, we'll be discussing the details of the Canadian Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program. As you can see, it is a long tongue-twisting name, so for simplicity, we'll be referring to this program throughout the presentation as CECRA. In today's presentation, our panelists will explain what exactly the CECRA program offers. We will clarify also who is eligible for the program. We'll talk about how exactly it works and what specific steps are involved in the application process, and what exactly you have to do to start the process. So to make it super easy, Strathallan has set up an application portal, and we'll actually have our assistant controller do a mock application submission. In other words, he will show you live here today, step by step, how to fill and submit the individual forms. So we're hoping that by the end of the webinar, everyone will be crystal clear on how to take advantage of this great opportunity. And if you still have questions after this webinar, we'll provide you with an email address for further communication. Sounds good? So let's get to it. Let me introduce our panelists. Our first panelist is Jamie Paquin. Jamie is a partner at a law firm named Dow Vukovich, specializing in real estate law. I'll make him blush, but Jamie is one of the greatest legal minds in Ontario, and as far as I'm concerned, in the entire country. Jamie and Dow Vukovich have been a great advisor to Strathallan, and I'm pleased to share him and his expertise with you today. Jamie will describe for us the general terms of the CECRA program, and will answer some of the questions you have sent us. Our second panelist is our Chief Financial Officer, Arash Hassami. Ari will explain to us how CECRA program works, and he will walk us through the individual steps of the program. Last but not least, we'll hear from our Assistant Controller, Walid Kanani, who has not only the most splendid hair at Strathallan, but also knows everything there is to know about the actual CECRA submission process. So Walid will simulate for us step by step how to fill out and submit the CECRA application. Now over to Jamie to outline the CECRA program for us. Jamie?
All right, thank you, Peter, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to Strathallan for including me in this, what I think is a very important webinar to explain, what is CECRA, due to the significant importance and how it can help small business tenants who have been impacted by COVID-19. So getting right into it, so it's been briefly explained what CECRA is. A program that will provide rent relief for impacted small business tenants who have experienced financial hardship due to COVID-19. This is a program that has been initiated by the federal government of Canada. It has joint participation with all the provinces and territories who are assisting in the funding of the program. And basically what CECRA will do for small business tenants who meet the requirements is it is going to result in a 75% gross rent reduction for the months of April, May, and June. So just to be clear, the program provides a complete reduction in forgiveness of that 75% of your monthly gross rent. It is not a deferral, it is a complete forgiveness. This program is being administered by the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. So the burden has been put on the landlords to handle the administration of it. But as you're going to see, I think from this program, Strathallan's going to do a great job at making that as simple as possible for you. So one last thing to understand about the program, we're going to explain it obviously in more detail as we go along, is that this is an option for landlords. It's not a mandatory program by any means. Or an obligation, but it is up to the landlords to participate for each particular property and to include in their applications the tenants that meet their requirements. So to the next slide, please, Peter. So the first thing to understand, and then probably the most important thing from a tenant's perspective, is, are you an impacted small business tenant? So per the CECRA requirements, to qualify as an impacted small business tenant, you have to be a business that does not pay more than $50,000 a month in gross rent, and that is per location. So you might be an entity that has multiple leases with multiple locations. So as long as a location, your monthly rent is under the $50,000 threshold, that location potentially and that lease potentially will meet the requirements, as long as obviously there's other requirements that would have to be met. So also, to be an impacted small business tenant, you have to be a business that does not generate more than $20 million in annual gross revenue. So it's important to note that this 20 million gross revenue is calculated at a consolidated basis if you operate through a group of companies, and we're going to talk about what that means and how that would be calculated in some of the questions that we'll be responding to shortly. And so we'll get in that a little more detail. Your business also has to have experienced at least a 70% decline in gross revenue or sales, for if that's a little bit kind of a simpler way to put it, an easier way to understand. So that's 70% decline in your business for April, May, and June. And to determine your decline in revenue or sales, you have to compare it to something. And the way the program works is you would compare that to the same months, April, May, and June of 2019. So if your business did not happen to be operating in those months in 2019, you would actually then compare it to your average revenue for January and February of this year. You'll note that the program obviously requires tenants to determine whether their sales for June have also been impacted with the 70% decline, which, since we're not in June yet, you wouldn't be able to do. And by the time the applications are made, it won't be the end of June either. So for the month of June, the program does allow tenants to forecast what that revenue will be. So you can look at obviously how April and May went and make a reasonable forecast for June. And that's how you can determine what your decline in revenue was for the months of April, May, and June in 2020. If your business is a subtenant and not a direct tenant of Strathallan, your business may also be eligible for CECRA. So as long as you still meet these same small business qualifications we've talked about, and your sublease and the structure does meet the program requirements, don't fret. If you're a subtenant, you can still be, you can still meet the small business tenant requirements and the requirements for CECRA. However, in this case, you're going to have to contact your sub-landlord, who is the main tenant of the lease, as they have to participate. There's going to have to be an agreement between them and Strathallan and yourself and your sub-landlord, and they're going to have to participate by submitting the requisite documentation as well. So if you are a subtenant, we stress you contact your sub-landlord immediately and advise them that if you meet the requirements, you want to be able to participate in this in Strathallan's CECRA program, and get them engaged, because their participation will be necessary. So we can move to the next slide, please. So how does this whole CECRA program work? So as we said, it's going to result in a 75% total reduction in your monthly gross revenue. So that means that tenants that are going to be enrolled in Strathallan's CECRA program are still going to have to pay 25% of its monthly gross rent for the months of April, May, and June. Once the application is made, as long as it is approved by CMHC, CMHC will then be the entity that is funding these forgivable loans, which amount to 50% of a tenant's monthly gross rent for the periods in question. So note that these loans, they're only forgivable if all those CECRA requirements are met and continue to be met until December 31st. So if the requirements are not met, the landlord actually may have to repay part of this 50% portion of a tenant's rent. If the CECRA application is not approved for whatever reason, maybe it turns out a tenant did not meet some of the requirements, or the property may not. There's many reasons it might not be approved. In that case, the rent reduction that was provided to the tenant and the rent reduction agreement that we'll also speak to a little bit about later would no longer apply. So this is why it's very important for you as tenant to participate and ensure that your business meets the requirements, and you provide everything that Strathallan's is going to need to apply for the program. So the last piece is per Strathallan's CECRA program, Strathallan will be responsible for 25% of the tenant's monthly gross rent payments for April, May, and June. So as we said, the tenant remains responsible for 25%. The program, as long as all the requirements are met, CECRA that is, will fund 50% of the rent, and 25% of the tenant's rent for the months of April, May, and June will be written off completely and forgiven by the landlord. So I'll throw it back to Peter.
Thank you, Jamie. Now, Ari, over to you. Can you please speak further to what happens at the individual steps of the CECRA program, please?
Sure. Thank you, Jamie and Peter. So to complete the CECRA application process from the beginning to the end, we should take 4 major steps that I'm going to go over them with you. Before explaining each step, I just wanted to emphasize that Strathallan will process CECRA application based on the property owner's direction for eligible impacted small business tenants who experience financial hardship.
Sorry, 1 second. Ari, you're on mute. So can you please unmute yourself?
Sorry, apologize for the technical difficulty.
Sorry, guys. So from the beginning to the end, you should take...
Ari, maybe I think what we need is you need to mute and unmute yourself. There's a little bit of a technical difficulty. We'll just give it 10 seconds and it should be fine. It happens on the mic usually in a call.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
There you go. We're good to go. Perfect.
Okay. Sorry, folks. Thank you very much, Walid and Peter. So to complete the CECRA application process from the beginning to the end, we have to complete 4 major steps. I'm going to over these steps with you at high level and then at a little bit further detail, and then Walid going to show you step by step through a live example. So before I do that, I have to re-emphasize on the fact that Strat Allen will process CECRA applications based on the owner's direction from the eligible impacted small business tenants who experience financial hardship. So what is step one? In step one, tenant who deems itself to be qualified send email to Strat Allen at CECRA@stratallen.com. Many of you have already sent us that email, and over coming days until June 5th, you'll receive more. This email, under this email, you request, to be applied for this program, and you provide certain information as per the email that was sent to you. Under step two, Strat Allen performs a preliminary eligibility assessment against the eligibility criteria. And then selected tenants will be provided with a tenant-specific link to the Strat Allen CECRA portal to download the required documents. In step three, tenant signs and provide all required documents and additional information through the Strat Allen CECRA portal upload link. Later, you will see all of these links, and they are easier than we think. So the unqualified tenants will be informed on a timely basis under this step. And finally, under step four, Strat Allen will perform a final assessment of tenant qualification and submit the CECRA application for the managed property to CMHC. I just want to re-emphasize on one practical matter, that we can only submit one application per managed property. Therefore, it is very important that all information must be complete and accurate when submitted to Strat Allen. Next slide, please, Walid. Okay, so now we provide more information under step one. If you believe you qualify for CECRA based on CECRA eligibility criteria as a qualified impacted small business tenant, and you are experiencing financial hardship to pay your entire rent, then send an email to CECRA@stratallen.com no later than June 5th, 2020, with the following information and separately for each lease agreement. One, confirm that you would like to apply for this program, and also confirm that you will pay 25% of the gross rent for April, May, and June 2020. Two, you will provide your legal name based on the lease agreement and your trade name, if your trade name is different from your legal name, and also the name of the property that the tenant business is located in. For example, you say Market Mall, right? Or if you don't know exactly the name, you put the address. Tenant unit number based on the lease agreement. This information will help us to locate exactly which tenant is applying for, and then take the next step. Can you please, Walid, go to the next slide? Under step two, Strat Allen will perform a preliminary eligibility assessment based on the government criteria. Strat Allen will provide eligible tenants with a confidential specific link to the Strat Allen CECRA portal to download the required documents as follows. So there will be a form that gathers this information. We call it tenant information form. Your business number. This is your CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, 8-digit business number. Number of employees of the tenant. Other rental relief that you might have received, or insurance proceed for business interruption, if that's the case. Total consolidated gross revenue for most recent completed fiscal year and prior period at the consolidated ultimate parent level, and other information document as deemed necessary by the landlord. So all of the above information are requested by government, and we have to include them in the application that we submit to CMHC. Therefore, we have to take them from you. The other important document that we have to get is rent reduction agreement. And lastly, tenant attestation form that confirming that you are qualified. So I would like to let all of you know that Strat Allen CECRA portal is a secure and confidential portal, you only see your own information and no other tenant can see the other tenant information. Next slide, please. Okay, and under step 3, tenant will upload all of the documents that they receive under step 2. You go over those documents, you execute them, and then you upload them. These are the tenant information form, rent reduction agreement, and tenant attestation. So the only way we communicate with respect to this the portal, we have to perform under this platform to make sure we effectively and efficiently process as soon as possible. With that, I will ask my colleague Walid to walk you through a live example of Strat Allen CECRA portal and the steps in further detail. Over to you, Walid.
Thank you, Ari. So, hello everyone. I'm here to make this process as easy as possible for everyone by actually showing what steps would need to be followed. As Arash mentioned, that we have 3 to 4 different steps that tenant has to go over. And what we will do is we will actually follow a live example of what you will receive and what we need to do from the tenant side to ensure that the application is complete and accurate. So, as the first step mentioned by Arash, all tenants that are qualified should have received an email from Strat Allen CECRA CECRA portal by CECRA email account by now. So the email would have looked like this, where we have asked, as Arash mentioned earlier, 5 various things which we need confirmation for before we can begin the application process. Now, all we simply need at this point is nothing formal. We simply need all tenants to confirm their legal name, their trade name, confirm that they're committed to pay 25% of the gross rent for the month of April, May, and June, the name of the property, and unit number. This does not have to be a formal document. It can be as simple as going into your email inbox, creating a new email, pasting this CECRA at stratalineemail.com, and giving us this five information that we are asking for. Now, once we have received these 5 information, the next step is Strat Allen will perform its initial assessment, and we will be sending all qualified tenants the portal links, which is the Strat Allen CECRA portal. Now, what does that look like for a single tenant? So let me see if I can pull up an email for everybody to show exactly what that portal will look like. All right, so let's say everyone, all qualified tenants have submitted their application at CECRA@strathallen.com or their initial interest with the 5 required information. Then Strat Allen performs an assessment, and then each tenant, qualified tenant, will receive an email that will look like this from, let's say, your property manager, which will inform you that the initial assessment has been completed, and Strat Allen would like you to fill out the below application. Once you fill out the below application, and how you fill out the below application, you simply have to go on your download link, and the way you submit it is through your upload link. I'm going to go through each link to show you what you need to do, but before I do, I want to reiterate that once you receive both links, do understand that the first link, which is called the download link, is only for you to download the documents and execute. Once those documents have been executed, that is, you have signed those documents, you would need to click on the upload link to upload those documents. There are 2 different links, so make sure you are aware of those things. Now, as a tenant, once I have received this email, I will click on the download link to see what I need to fill out. As mentioned previously, it's a very confidential and secure link. You will not be able to see any other download links sent to any other tenants or vice versa. You simply have to click on your documents to be downloaded by the tenant. And in this case, you will receive 3 various documents as mentioned. One is tenant attestation, confirming that you understand the requirements and you're eligible. Second is rent reduction agreement, which is basically a formal agreement between the landlord and the tenant to show that the rent reduction has been executed. And lastly, the tenant form, which are the additional details that Strat Allen will require in order to complete your application on the CECRA portal given to us by the government. So what I'll do is I'll open up each document to kind of walk you through this so everybody understands what needs to be done. So let's say you download the first document, which is the attestation form. It's a very simple 5-page document. All that is required from the tenant here is to read the information and understand. Once the tenant has read the information and understands, all we need is an execution on page 30. We simply need your signature, legal name of the business, name, date, address of the property, etc. Very simple information, and then there is an appendix which all tenants can read. Once you have this document, we simply need you to save this document on your desktop or wherever you prefer. Once you've saved this document, you can sign off and it will be saved on your computer. Next, you will go on to the rent reduction agreement. You can download all three together or do it one by one. But for simplicity's sake, I'll show it one by one so that if in case you're having issues download, you can do it one by one as well. Rent reduction agreement. This is a sample of a rent reduction agreement. It may not be exact same, but this is in the gist of it, this is what it would look like. And in this case, it's not executed, but we will have the tenant detail related to that specific tenant on there so that tenant can read and understand the impact and see what they're signing off on. Once you have read this agreement, again, all we need from tenant at this side is a simple execution of the agreement. The brunt of the work is being done by the landlord itself. We will try and get all the agreements ready for each tenant specific to that tenant information. And all we need is execution from the tenant for the first two agreements. Now, same thing needs to be done here. You can right click or however you prefer to save. You save it in wherever you prefer to save. Let's say I save it on my desktop. So I have the rent reduction agreement saved. Lastly, what we need is the tenant form. Before I move on, I just want to confirm that this rent reduction agreement that you have, as mentioned in the disclaimer, please ensure that you get your advisors or your legal team, or if you have accountants, reviewed so that every tenant understands what they're signing off on and they understand the implication of this agreement. So please ensure you read this thoroughly and have this reviewed by an advisor that can guide you through this process as well. Strathallan, as mentioned, is always available to provide support. Now, the last one is tenant form. What is this form? This, again, as mentioned, none of this information is for Strathallan itself. All of these information that we're requesting is what we are required to take from the tenant in order to complete the application. So this will look like this. This is also a very simple form. All we need from you is this column right there, which says tenants respond to be filled out by the tenant, filled out. So in this case, the example that I've used is XYZ tenant. Business name is the business number is a CRA, number of employees, impacted tenant. Now, a thing to note here would be that the first three options is where we can manually fill out whatever we need to fill out. So for example, instead of 5, you have, let's say, 10 employees in your specific lease or specific business name that you're applying for, you put in your number. For question number 4 and 5, we cannot have a value be put here because it will not accept it. Neither you can fill it manually. As you see through the note, you have to select one of the drop-down menu because this is how it is presented on the portal itself, where Strathallan or the landlord applying for the particular tenant has to select one of the drop-down menus. So it's simple. You clicked on the drop-down menu and you select whether you're an impacted tenant. And as previously mentioned by Jamie, even if you're a sub-landlord or a subtenant, you can still apply. You just need to indicate which category fits you. So let's say you're an impacted tenant directly and your lease is directly with the landlord. And then NAICS code. What is this? This is just basically one of the industry code that you need to select of where you do that. For example, there's going to be a bunch of drop-down menus. You can be an educational service. You can be management company enterprise. You can be mining. You can be manufacturing. For our example, let's say I pick food services. Once that is done, you simply add in your area lease square feet per the lease. You add in your gross consolidated revenue from last fiscal year at the parent level. This may confuse some people right now. What is parent level? Do not worry. We cover that in our frequently asked questions, and Peter will ask one of us this question and you will get the answer to that. But let's say you have a gross consolidated revenue of $100,000. You put that here as well. And then tenant proceeds from insurance or other non-repayable rent support programs. What this means is if you have registered a claim with your insurance, or if you have received any non-repayable rental support program and any amount there, you need to enter that here. Let's say as a tenant, if you receive $10,000 from your insurance for your business interruptions, if in case you receive that, or if you have received 0, you just need to indicate on that form. So a simple matter of filling out these 8 requirements. And once you fill these out, you can scroll down, read, and execute the document as well. Once you've executed, we just need you to save this document as a PDF, and you can simply save this from here And once you've saved, you can upload this document. So let me save this for you guys so you get a live example. More additional information. Saving it for you. Browse. Let's say I want to save it on my desktop. The CRA program, and here's my save this as a PDF. Save. Perfect. The saving's done, and this automatically converts it into a PDF, as you'll notice that it comes right there. And then you can sign off on the bottom as well. Let's say you've executed all 3 documents, you are ready, and you have read through everything, and your legal advisors have also advised you to proceed. All we simply need from you guys is, you go to the CECRA application email that property manager or someone from StratCloud may have sent to you. All you need to do is click on your upload link. As I mentioned previously, do not try and upload on the download link. The download link is a tenant-specific link with only information where the tenant is supposed to receive documents and download and save. Once you're done, click on the upload link. The upload link will be an empty file that will look like this. All we simply need you to do is click on Add Files. And if you remember, we saved 3 documents, which are namely tenant, subtenant attestation, rent reduction agreement, and tenant form. Select all 3, and you click Open, and boom. All documents are added to this file. Before you close the browser, be sure to press Upload. This is very important. Just because you've added the files does not mean that StratCloud has received these documents. Once you click Upload, you will see file dropped successfully and 3 files were uploaded. This is a confirmation as a tenant that you have successfully transferred 3 files to StratCloud. And once you've done that, you're good to go, and then StratCloud will take over from there. And with that, I will pass it on to Peter. Over to you.
Thank you, Walid, and thank you, gentlemen, for your insights and explanation. Before we turn to our Q&A, which will hopefully further clarify some of these ambiguities, I would like to reiterate one message which we have voiced previously. The message is we want to treat you as our business partners, and we want to keep providing you with information that is helpful to your businesses. If you have not seen it, please go to our website or go to YouTube and type in Strathallan Capital, and you'll find several useful videos. We have posted a webinar on how to apply for various financial assistance programs. We did a webinar on how to increase your customer base while your store is closed. We included tips on social media and things you should keep in mind when reopening your store. So please go to our website and click on the COVID resource link, or go on YouTube and search for Strathallan Capital to get access to this information. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, because that way we'll be able to let you know when new videos are posted. And also, please let us know in the comment section of the YouTube channel what specific subjects you would like us to cover on the future webinars. We'll bring in the experts and address the topics you may find useful for your business, and the substance of the webinars will be only as good as your requests and feedback. So please let us know on our YouTube channel. We'll now turn to the questions that have been sent to us by you. By the way, thank you for sending these questions. We're hoping that the answers to these questions will clarify any ambiguities that you may still be struggling with. So I'll now read the questions and ask the most relevant panelists to answer them for us. So the question number 1 is, I am a qualified tenant and I have not paid my rent for April, May, and June. What rent do I need to pay under CECRA? Ari, I think that you're probably best suited to answer this one.
Thank you, Peter, and I hope everyone hears me this time. So under this program, you must pay 25% of gross monthly rent for April, May, and June 2020 to be approved for this program, considering all other criteria is met. For example, if monthly gross rent for a specific lease is $100,000 before GST HSTN or QST, whatever is applicable, you must pay a total of 7,500 or 2,500 for each month, which in this case is equal to 25% of that rent. So, Peter, that's the answer.
Okay. So question number 2, I am a qualified tenant and I have paid my rent for April, May, and June as a result of CECRA. Will I be credited for the excess amount of rent I paid in the future months? I think, Ari, this one is for you as well.
Absolutely, yes. You know, any excess amount of rent paid as a result of CECRA for the months of April, May, and June will be credited to the tenant's account for future months. So we have to, and we will do this, you know, in terms of excess amount. So there should be no doubt about this, Peter.
Okay, thank you. Question number 3, if I need to attest to a 70% drop in sales and revenue for 3 months, does my landlord need to wait until the end of June to apply?
Not really, no, you don't have to. Your eligibility on the 70% factor will be determined on the average of April and May, and then forecasting of your June revenue as was explained to by Jamie, because we are not in the June yet, right? And will not be having the actual June number by the time that we will apply for this program. Further in these questions, you will see that we have a very clear example that explains how does it work.
Okay, thank you very much. Question number 4, I have multiple retail locations and multiple landlords. How would CECRA for small businesses work in this situation? I believe, Jamie, probably this one's for you.
Thank you, Peter. So in this situation, so CECRA requires each property owner to opt into the program and to apply for each individual property. And then in each case, that property owner would be making the decision of what tenants are included in the application for each particular property. So if you have multiple leases for different locations with different property owners, you're going to have to deal with each landlord individually for each particular lease. Even if you have multiple leases with the same landlord, but at different properties, you're still going to have to follow the requirements and complete the documentation for each particular lease. So you'll have to deal with each property owner specifically for each particular lease that you have for different locations.
Understood. Thank you. Question number 5, what if I made a mistake in my application for CECRA? Ari, over to you.
Okay, so if you made a mistake in your application for CECRA, including but not limited to calculation of the 70% decrease in gross revenue, the $20 million test, or you know, in any mistake in your tenant attestation form, then you need to inform us immediately. Send an email to CECRA@strathallen.com as soon as you become aware of the error or mistake. And please note that the false or misleading information provided as part of the CECRA process will disqualify the applicant and will make the applicant retroactively responsible for all rent forgiven under the terms of your lease. Also, please note that as part of question 1, maybe I said $100,000, I meant to say $10,000. So if the rent is $10,000, the monthly rent, this is the obligation to pay $2,500 for each month. Thank you very much, Walid and Peter.
Okay, thank you kindly. Question number 6, how is the 20 million gross annual revenue threshold calculated, and what is the ultimate parent, quote unquote? Jamie?
Yes, thanks, Peter. So the 20 million gross revenue threshold is going to be based on what the tenant's business revenue was for the 2019 calendar year. So with the exception that if the tenant does not calculate its revenue on a regular calendar year, then it's whatever the tenant's revenue was for its last completed full 12-month fiscal period that you would use to calculate your financials. and so also important to consider. So we touched on this a little bit earlier, and this is how this whole issue about ultimate parent owner comes into play, is that if the tenant is a part of a group of companies, so it's a subsidiary, and it has a parent that also generates revenue, and that group of companies, along with the parent, calculates its revenue together as one individual business and produces consolidated financial statements. In that scenario, the 20 million would be calculated on the entire group of companies' total revenues as reported in consolidated statements. So this does not mean that if you are a subsidiary of a parent and a part of a group of companies, that's going to be the case. It's only where that group of companies has consolidated financial statements and reports its revenue as one particular business. So if you have specific revenue generated and you have your own individual business, and that's how you've reported revenue and produced financial statements in the past, then the 20 million test would just be based on the individual revenue that your business generates. So obviously this is one of the requirements. It's a little bit more juicy in terms of what has to be understood and how you have to calculate. And so Strathallan strongly suggests you and encourages you to speak to your financial advisor in order to determine what represents your business group, what represents your business gross revenue for CECRA purposes.
Beautiful. I love it when one revenue generator, such as a lawyer, recommends business for another revenue generator, an accountant. But absolutely, you have to, you cannot, this is a complicated matter. You should talk to your accountant on this. Thank you, Jamie. Question number 7, I'm a franchisee. Do I qualify for the program?
So that's me again, yeah. So if you are a franchisee, you can still qualify as an impacted small business tenant for CECRA. So in this case, we do suggest that you, again, reach out to your advisors and in particular contact your franchisor and let them know that you think you qualify, you meet the requirements, and you want to participate in Strathallan's CECRA program. And the reason is that for franchise businesses, there's going to be 2 important factors you're going to have to consider. And the first one is, are you the tenant under the lease? So in a lot of cases, while you're a franchisee of a franchise business and you have your franchisor, you're still the head tenant, the main tenant of Strathallan on your lease. And if that's the case, then you're going to go through the same kind of steps that that you've seen on this webinar in terms of how you're going to apply and qualify. It may be the case that you are a subtenant and your franchisor is the actual tenant under the lease. And we've already discussed in that scenario, you're going to have to reach out, like I said, to your franchisor who's the tenant and have them participate and produce the required documents and ensure that all the requirements are met. And again, the other important factor, if you are a part of a franchise business and a franchisee, is what we just discussed about how have you been calculating your revenue. In most cases, it's going to be you have your own separate business and you report your revenue individually and should be quite easy to calculate. But if that's not the case and somehow you're reporting revenue together with the franchisor or a group of companies, then as we said, you're going to have to determine with your financial advisors what your revenue is for CECRA purposes.
Thank you, Jamie. Question number 8. How do you calculate the 70% reduction in revenues? Ari?
Very good question, and we are using an example to answer this question. Please pay attention to the details that this will be very helpful for you. It depends as if you were operating during April, May, and June 2019 or not. Under first scenario, we assume the impacted tenant was operating during April and June 2019. If that's the case, then compare your gross revenue from April, May, and June of 2020 to your revenue of April, May, and June 2019. And how does it work? So let's say, you had no sales or revenue in April. You had $6,000 in May and $15,000 in June. These are 2020. Now in April 2019, you had $40,000. In May 2019, you had $30,000. And June 2019, $40,000. You have to calculate the percentage of decrease or percentage of change for every month. As you can see, A, B, C. So for example, your sales dropped by 100% in the month of April 2020 versus April 2019. And in June, decreased by 62.5%. Then you have to do the average of averages. So you add A, B, C, and you divide them to 3. This is the method that was prescribed by CMAC as per our understanding. Then you divide that to 3 and you reach to 80.8%. Then you compare it with 70% decrease. If it's at least 70%, then it's fine. You know, so it cannot be lower than 70%. This is the approach that should be used, but again, you need to talk to your own financial advisor. Please go to the next slide. Under this scenario, you were not operating during April and June 2019. Then you have to compare your average gross revenue from April, May, and June, which is June is a forecast of 2020, to your average gross revenue / sales for January and February 2020. Let's go through this example. Walid's Hair Salon, an independent standalone shop, opened September 1st, 2019. As you can see, this is after June 2019. They were in operation until their business was closed through provincial order on March 24th, 2020. In January and February, they generated gross revenue of $60,000 and $75,000 respectively. Despite maintaining some sales via curbside hair product pickup, sales dropped to $10,000 in April, improving to $50,000 in May. Following the reopening of their business on May 25th, they are forecasting gross revenue of $30,000 in June. So there are a few points here. You see that you forecasted June, and you see that you have to have your sales average for January and February. So what do? First, you do the average in step 1. You add the sales of April, May, and June of 2020, divide them to 3. You reach to $18,333. And then under step 2, you add the sales of January and February 2020, divide them to 2 to get this average for the base, and that's 67,500. Then you, under step 3, you divide that, right? You technically divide the numbers and you get to 72.8%. And this is bigger than 70%, and therefore you are qualified for that condition. Note, the methods of calculating the decrease in revenue is different depending on whether your business was operational in April, May, and June of 2019 or not. You do not have a choice. If you were not operating, you have to use that method. Note 2, the revenue must consist of revenue earned from ordinary activities in Canada. Also calculate your revenue using the normal accounting method that you have been using always, and exclude revenue from extraordinary items. So this is the area you need to talk to your financial advisors, to your accountants. Also, for registered charities and non-profit organizations, you might be eligible under certain circumstances. We urge you to check with your advisors prior to applying. Over to you, Peter.
Okay, thank you, Ari. Folks, I know this is a lot of information, a lot of details, so that's why we're sending out the recorded version. So please refer back to it. Question number 9, can my property owner ask me to pay back the rent at a later date after the program has ended? Jamie?
So yeah, absolutely not. So one of the fundamentals of CECRA is the landlord cannot require the tenant to pay back any portion of the rent that was reduced and forgiven. In the rent reduction agreement that the tenant and landlord will ultimately enter into, it's going to be a term in that rent reduction agreement that the landlord must agree that rent is completely forgiven and never recoverable. So this even includes through year-end adjustments or any type of future increase of rent to kind of make up the difference that is beyond fair market rent. So there's no way that the landlord can recover any of the reduced or forgiven rent. And it's also a requirement of CECRA and included in your rent reduction agreements that you'll be entering into, that the landlord cannot default the tenant or terminate a lease for non-payment of the 75% portion of your rent that is being forgiven and reduced pursuant to the program.
Okay, thank you. Question number 10, what are the various financial relief programs available? Walid?
So as everybody understands, the tenant is required to pay at least the 25% of rent, and there are various programs that are apart from the CECRA that are available, and we cannot put it all in one slide. So like a key example would be Canada Emergency Business Account, Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. We recommend you check out the government website. They have all the details there, and our property management team was nice enough to maintain a Strathallan COVID-19 resource center as well. So the link is also provided for that as well, where information has been gathered and made available for all tenants. So if you require more information, we definitely recommend either A, refer to our portal, or B, refer to the government website where a lot of information has been provided.
Okay, thank you. Question 11, I mean, it's very speculative, but will the program extend beyond June if public health measures remain in effect? Jamie?
Yep, so at this point in time, there's no indication from the government that the CECRA program will be extended beyond June. So anybody that's been following these programs knows that it's been the case that some of these COVID-19 related programs have been extended, but at this point, there's no indication that the CECRA program will, or if it is, what the requirements would be, whether they would be the same or they might be updated in some way. So Strathallan is going to continue to monitor any changes to the CECRA program, and if it is extended or if there is changes, you can be sure they'll be in touch to update you.
That's right. Well, thank you. Last question. When will the tenants receive the link to submit the CECRA documents and information?
Thank you, Peter. So the deadlines are as follows. The first deadline we talked, I think, initially about that, June 5th, 2020. This is a very important date. All tenants interested and qualified for CECRA should email their initial application along with requested information to Strathallan. The process starts from there. If we have not received your email, we cannot start the process. So June 5th, 2020. By June 17, 2020, the qualified tenants will be provided with their specific access link to the Strathallan CECRA portal. So we will send those links that Walid explained to you by an email from CECRA. You get the to download the information that you need to go and fill out and sign. And many of those forms already fill out for you. So June 22nd, 2020, that's a date that all executed documents by the tenants must be provided to Strathallan via Strathallan CECRA portal. So by June 22nd, you will upload those 3 documents that you received on June 17 to this portal. And then we submit the application in due course to CMHC. Over to you, Peter.
Great. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for all this information. Folks, I know it may look complicated, but we're hoping that by the use of the portal that with our company set up and with the instructions in this webinar, it will not take too long to complete. So please proceed with the application process. The CECRA program is really a great opportunity for those who are in dire financial difficulty and they want to clear their arrears. In a nutshell, if you provide all the requested information and you are eligible based on the criteria set by the government, you will benefit from 75% abatement of your gross rent for those 3 months. So not a deferral, but abatement, as Jamie and Ari said. So please follow the steps discussed on this webinar and provide the information at your earliest convenience. We're expecting a high volume of applications, just judging from how many people attended this webinar. So the sooner you apply, the sooner you'll benefit from the assistance program. This concludes our webinar. On behalf of Strathallan, let me wish you safe and successful reopening and application process. Thank you and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.